Hi, folks, and welcome to Original Firefighter. Original Firefighter is a lifestyle brand inspired by the American Fire Service. From gear for your off days to this podcast, we celebrate the fire service loud and proud every day. Remember, for every purchase you make at Original Firefighter, we give back 5% through our 5-Alarm Give Back program, supporting mental health and wellness for all firefighters. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, and be sure to check out originalfirefighter.com today. Let's get into the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is the Original Firefighter Podcast. I am your host, Will Peterson. We're going to jump right into it today. We've got a great guest back in the studio with us. Elvis is in the room. Phil Nedved, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. This is going to be fun.
I noticed you were growing the sideburns out.
Yep. Just for you.
Going to get the chops, the Elvis.
Try and make him look really good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, you could definitely pull off a Vegas Elvis impersonator. I think you'd do all right.
I can shake my hips. Ladies like it.
We got to get that on air, right? You know,
shimmy.
Although we'd probably get banned or something.
Probably, yeah.
So what's new? What's going on? What's the latest thing going on with you?
Not a whole lot.
So, what has been the latest travel that you've done?
Recently just got back from Boston, Massachusetts. Boston, Massachusetts.
Yes. Yeah. Still, it's still there.
Still a funny place. Boston. Yeah. For the International Association of Firefighters biennial convention.
Yeah.
So it was a good time. Got to learn a lot while I was there. This was my first time going.
Okay.
And got to experience some cool things. I never thought I'd get to see back-to-back vice presidential candidates speak to a group of firemen. So that was interesting.
Yes. So you're saying you got to see J.D. Vance and the other guy, because I know his name and he's such a buffoon. So Tim Walz, you got to see him.
Yeah, I got to see Tim Walz.
Gotcha. Yeah. Waltz. Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We'll go with that. Walz.
I did appreciate J.D. Vance knowing that he didn't have, like all the support in the room, and how he acknowledged it. Something about, I see I got some work to do in this room or something like that.
Yeah. There were some boos, which was, disappointing. I think we're representing an organization. This person's taken time out of their day, busy day, to come and talk to us, specifically us, about our concerns, and to boo them, whether you like the politics or not. It's just disrespectful. I think we need to grow up as adults sometimes and just listen. But I think he did well, played it off well, came out, said, it looks like I've got some fans and some haters, but just listen up for a minute and maybe you'll like what I have to say. And I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Didn't come out, wasn't angry about it, played it off and did well. And that, politician, whatever,
Yeah.
But it was definitely interesting to hear them both. And, I got to give props to Vance, and I think you give them to Trump too. They're willing to go into the lion's den and have open discussion and try and be honest with them. And the other side, you don't really see that as much, if at all, actually.
Trump and Vance have given a combined of like 70 interviews, and the other side has given 7.
Yeah.
And one being the national, television interview with, what was it, Dana Bash, CNN?
Oh, when they gave a multiple choice question and answers, that interview?
Where they
had a tag team it together because she was afraid to. That was interesting. What you see, at least this is my perception, and I'll just make a disclaimer. These are the opinions of me, no organization or anyone else, right?
Yeah. I think people are going to figure out pretty quickly what side we're on. It is what it is.
Opinions. But I think the biggest thing is one side seems scripted. One side says the same thing at everything they do. And the other side is, off the cuff, which I think is more honest and open than having something scripted. to repeat over and over and over again. And you'll see it with the Trump side. He's got his talking points he's going to talk about and might say the same thing a few times. But in general, when a question of economics and the financial state of the country comes up and you tell a story about your childhood being middle class.
Yeah, I've got no idea where she's going with half the things that she's
didn't
trying to
answer
put
the
out there.
question. But I also find it interesting, no one said in Canada.
Right.
You didn't say that. You want to make people think it was in, hometown USA.
Right. I'm of the people.
Montreal, Canada.
Right.
You grew up.
Yeah, in the middle class of Montreal, Canada. Yeah. Here's the thing. The great thing about this show right here that we're doing today is that, we could sit here all day and talk about the fire service. A couple firefighters sitting around talking about, good old days or, the tough calls or the bullshit, calls. And
you slipped up there. You said bullshit EMS calls. Just called bullshit calls, not EMS.
Fine. EMS is important.
It's important. Our bread and butter.
It is. But, here's the thing. What we've really started to think about here is these are the conversations that are actually happening in firehouses all across America.
Yeah.
You just don't hear about them, out. Why would you out in the street, right? And, HR probably doesn't want to hear you, half the stuff coming out of our mouth, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think today you're going to probably see that we're getting a little political, and the reason for that is because we're alive. We know what's going on, and it's happening right now, and we're real deep into the election. And you got to go to the IAFF convention, and you got to hear from political candidates.
Yeah,
J.D. Vance, Tim Walz. They spoke to you guys. What did you hear, from either side? What give us your take on the good, the bad? What were you booing inside? What were you cheering inside when you would, when you would hear either one of them say something you thought like, okay, that's going to work for us, or no, that ain't going to work?
Yeah, I think some of the bigger things from Tim Walz was, the Democrats have been supporters of labor and have always had the labor support. And that's something that's true. We have always supported the Democratic Party. And especially when it comes to whether it's local, state, or federal elections. At the end of the day, though, our membership appears to be more conservative in some of their leanings and maybe more fiscally conservative and socially liberal or vice versa. And there's a lot of things that we have to take into account as leaders of labor. But the biggest thing should always be what our body wants, because we're representing them. So with Tim Walz, it seemed like it was, he did a fine speech. I don't disagree with your statement of a buffoon. He seems very like, hey, I'm the funny white guy who eats tuna and mayo tacos. Is that what she said? That's what she said to him.
He comes across as like,
cheese.
I don't think he knows what he's doing there.
It's like the lovable, uncle who's a coach, right? And that's what we want. He's kind of a portly fellow, and he's always this and he's that. But when you look at his record in his own state, and he was in the executive position of Minnesota, right? It wasn't legislative, and he had many years of that. But as the executive branch of his state, which he's vying for a job in the executive branch of federal government, I think what you saw happen in Minnesota, and yet again, I'm not from Minnesota. I didn't live in Minnesota. I have been to Minneapolis, and I thought this place is awesome. I can't wait to come back. Until 2020 happened, and I told myself I'll never go back.
Yeah,
because how fearful that must have been for the residents who just wanted to live. And whatever your beliefs are, at the end of the day, the government's job, they have one job, in my opinion. It's to protect its citizens, whether that's local, state, or federal. And that didn't happen there. And it didn't happen in a lot of parts of the country. So listening to him talk, allowing, I don't want to say he allowed it to burn, but there were things that happened that it took some time to get things under control.
He allowed real estate to be forfeited. He gave it up.
Right.
I mean, they have it on record that there were command posts set up during the riots that you're referring to. There were command posts that, they were overrun.
Yeah.
And they were directed by Waltz to let it go.
Right. And especially as a firefighter is going into these and dangerous scenes, right? And at a point you just say, you're going to have to just let it burn because it's unsafe for you to go in there and get in there and do your job.
Yeah.
When you have to have police protection around you. And we've both have been plenty of those calls where we've had to have police protection surrounding us. But that something totally different where it was allowed to happen that way. It
takes on a whole nother face or level of things that we can't believe is happening. A mob action riot where you're letting blocks of a city just burn and go, and you're letting it happen, and you're thinking you're going to get control of it by just letting the people wear themselves out until they they just don't have enough energy to keep doing the mayhem, and so then that's when you come in and clean it all up. It's like that is definitely the opposite of how a firefighter or a police officer operates.
Right. And some of the disturbing things were these are the same group of people that were promoting it, right? Promoting it to let it happen and go on. And, I don't know if it's true or not, but there was a report that his wife had stated she opened up the windows so she could smell the burning tires. And that was a smell of change. Yeah. It was beautiful. It's like that was someone's business, and that person might not have had maybe insurance or is never going to have that business again. What we think sometimes is the exact opposite of what's actually happening. And in Minneapolis and other parts of the country, the government allowed it to happen, didn't protect its citizens and do the main function it's supposed to do at that point.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing with him. It just, yet again.
But no, I mean, here's the thing. As you heard him speak, so, as I had asked, you were at this convention, you're hearing him speak. He didn't talk about any of that. No. He's not bringing it up. He's not, the other side is going to bring it up and say, you want to be the vice president and you let your state burn, you let your largest city, I was born in Minnesota. You look at any major metropolitan area that has had, these kind of crises, the ramifications, they go on for years. Yeah. I don't think, and certainly this is not comparing apples to apples by any means, but there's probably blocks of LA still recounting the LA riots.
Yeah.
How many decades later now? So this is going to be the same thing where 30, 40 years from now, Minneapolis and Portland and Seattle, they're all going to look back at this and go, we really failed as a society. I mean, at least I think you should be pretty critical about that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a funny, line from The Hangover, the first one, where he's making a phone call. Hello. We fucked up.
It's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what you're going to see. Like you said, at least a decade of trying to fix, repair, and make it what it was before is maybe there. But yeah, biggest thing for him.
He did what I'm saying. He does not bring that up. He wants, and I don't even. They want to tell us that they're going to do so much better than what their current administration is doing. So I don't know how you're walking that tightrope, because you are the current administration, and yet you're telling everyone that the next 4 years are going to be way better. They're going to be better, and they're going to give out this, they're going to give that, they're going to fix the problems and keep everybody, to your point, they're going to we're going to be safer under the Harris Waltz administration, and I'm struggling to see how that is possible, given that on both sides, whether it be under Biden and the pull out of Afghanistan, that was atrocious. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sorry, but anybody out there that thinks that was getting out the right thing to do. Sure, it was what the intent is always to get out of wars.
Right.
But like that, that ain't hitting a home run there.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, to the point you're making with the riots in Minneapolis, I mean, that ain't protecting shit either.
Right.
So we have pretty good representations of things that should have been gone a lot better, and they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and they were in charge. So that's what you have a potential of electing this time around. And all in the name of what? Because you don't like the orange guy? Because you don't like him. You don't.
Orange man bad.
Orange man bad, yeah. And we're going to get into that. I find it hard to think of politicians that anybody sits around and goes, man, I really like him or her. I really thought about it. And I like that person. It's like, really? How about, do you like their governance?
Right.
Or do you not like their governance?
Right.
Because you don't know them.
Right.
I mean, you don't know, you probably don't even know your council person in your hometown. You don't really know them.
We talk about someone personally, like, listen, Donald Trump is not someone who to emulate as a person in his personal life. Right.
I don't need to emulate him.
Right.
I'm not walking around attempting to emulate or be that person.
Yeah. What are his policies and what has he done for the country? And we know what we're getting because we had it. Yeah. I mean, this is not, but it's so weird that we're back to the 2015, 2016 talking points in 2024. 8-9 years later, it's the same thing of the world's going to end and this and this and this. And I say this and this and this because there's so many things you can talk about, but we're back to that. But we're forgetting the fact that we lived through 4 years of a Trump administration, a Trump presidency. And personally, I think if there is a 2024 election that goes in favor of Trump, I think the next administration will be much better because he's now navigated. He knows. There's an old clip of him at one point saying he wants to lose it all. He's on Larry King. He wouldn't mind losing it all because then he can see who's still there at the end and know who his true friends and allies are. And he's exactly done that, right? 2 impeachments, 3-4 indictments, how many felony counts, 2 assassination attempts, right? Like anyone else, take away the assassination attempts, anyone else that had those things happen to them is toxic, is nuclear, and you stay away from them.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, keep going.
But there's people that are have stuck by him, and those are the people that believe in what his messaging was and what he actually wants to do. And you look back at 2016 and who was in Congress. The Republicans controlled the Congress. But you had people like Paul Ryan, right, who were just, I mean, you want to use the term rhino, that's a rhino, right? And Wisconsin, right over the border from us, not far. I mean, he's from the Janesville area, where he was at. And then you look at who used to be our former congressman, and he, you just can't say enough about who these people were and what they did to deter things that he tried implementing, trying to, as his slogan goes, make America great again. They really stood in the way as barriers and roadblocks in actually implementing those things, making that first year at least of the Trump presidency in 2016 not as effective as it could have been because he didn't know any better and he didn't have, the people in place. He was listening to the people who had been there. And when he talks about the swamp, literally those people, he made some poor decisions in who he wanted on his side. He thought he could trust those people. Now he knows, right, who he can and can't trust.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I think it'd just be more effective, especially when you look at who's supporting him now, right? People that you would never think. Nicole Shannon, I was just listening to her speak.
RFK Jr.
Yeah. I mean, she was his VP candidate, right? And she was a liberal Democrat from California in big tech. And she's realizes now, right? RFK Jr. Absolutely. These people who would never have done it, but realize, what's actually at stake and who he's actually running against. And they might not agree on everything. Tulsi Gabbard, another one. They might not agree on everything, but that's what I like about Trump is it's a coalition, right? We're taking
they're
people
actually
from
saying,
all over.
here's the thing. They're actually saying that out loud. Both J.D. Vance and Trump are saying that out loud. They're like, we don't have to agree on everything.
Right.
And, Trump has even said, like, I think he's signaling, like, I know you don't like me.
Yeah.
That's okay. This is show business, not show friends.
Yeah.
And, I for what it's worth, I mean, I applied a little bit of that logic as a commanding officer in the fire service. Was I'm here to get a job done, and to do it well, and make sure that we get the job done, and people are safe. Fires go out, the homes are protected, the people are rescued, all that stuff. All that stuff came first for me before it was a concern of whether or not I was well liked or not. I didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
What I cared about was, are we getting the job done that we're being hired to do? Well, I can turn that same thought onto our current election process right now. And let's face it, I mean, the both of them, first it was Biden and Trump. I know which one I like better as far as like not liking the person. I like the policies.
Right.
And if you're smart, you'll think about what the policies are before you'll think about who is the person. I think there's more value at that level of what are their policies? What are they going to do to make this country safe, well protected, make sure that we do have cost of living that is, affordable for all, not just for some. That is important. But at the end of the day, it's the policies over personality.
Yeah.
And they're saying it straight out to your face. They're saying, stop thinking about me as whether or not you like me or not. Listen to the policies that I'm talking about, or consider the 4 years that you had under the Trump administration versus the 4 years that you currently had, or, they keep saying 3.5, but it were virtually 4 years with the Biden and Harris team. And it's not good.
Listen,
Right.
Joe Biden seems like a really nice old man, and like Uncle Joe from Scranton, man, blue collar guy.
Right.
Tell you to piss off. You get a little too much, piss and vinegar in you. I used piss twice there. It was weird, but I mean, Kamala, what way do you pronounce her name? I like Tucker Carlson is calling her Carmela now. I think that's pretty funny. Kamala,
Hey, it's Kamala Harris.
But Kamala, like the biggest thing with her is, man, I'll tell you what, she's probably, most women she'd be a really fun friend to have in a wedding party. And we hear she likes to sip on the vino a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Like, yeah, really fun. But like you said, what's your policies for this?
I think the other thing,
and we still don't know.
No, we don't. We don't know. And I think that to come back to something that you were talking about, when it comes to knowing what you're getting with Trump, okay, here's the thing. He is probably the most vetted person in political history.
Yeah.
Like there's not a thing, I mean, at this point that you don't know.
Yeah.
It would appear that way. Hey, maybe there's still something, conspiracy theories and things of that nature. But talk about they have basically crawled up his ass and figured out, like, this is all of his good and this is all of his bad. Here's his buttons. If you push these, it's going to probably create some, effect that he, and they did that in the debate.
Oh yeah.
Where they, and that's his fault. I mean, there are things that he has to own.
Yeah.
So he can't just be manipulated like that. But at the same time, you know exactly what you're getting, and with Kamala and Waltz, it's like I have no clue.
Yeah,
I have no clue, and I have that. Basically, what that also means is that I have no confidence.
Right.
And I think the other thing too with Trump, and I've thought about this recently. People talk about his behavior. They talk about personality and all that stuff, and he gets trashed pretty good. About a lot of he's bombastic. He says whatever is on his mind, and there it is. The thing that I think that what he represents actually is that he is showing all of us, all the citizens of the United States, we are getting a front and center view of actually what most of the politicians are actually like. He's just doing it out in front, right in front. Just, the curtains are pulled back, and this is the way that they're actually acting. Sometimes he can be, kind of childish. I think they all are.
Yeah.
They just don't want you to see that. They put the mask on because, what conscious person would be like, well, I can't show you my negatives. I must always be showing you the best front that, therefore I want you to like me. Please like me. Don't ever think anything, bad about me, because if I act this way, then, you'll have an opinion.
Right. Well, when you look at most politicians, they need this, right? That's their job. How many years has Nancy Pelosi been in Congress, right? How many years was Joe Biden in elected office, right? That's all they do. That's all they know. They need to hide those things so they can continue to get reelected. Donald Trump doesn't need it, right? It's probably been a detriment to him. People used to like him. Everybody actually liked him.
Well, it's certainly been a detriment to his physical.
Right. Yeah.
They keep trying.
Yeah. Initially it was he lost all his friends. Then he lost money, right? And now, 2 times now, potentially almost lost his life.
Right.
So when you look at that, he doesn't need it, but he keeps pushing forward. And I think that's what resonates with a lot of people as a fighter.
Yeah.
Right? To stand up and say, fight, fight, fight. Also, my favorite line is, where are my shoes? I need my shoes.
Yes. Get my shoes.
Get my shoes.
Can't be seen in socks.
Yeah.
I just got shot.
Yeah. I think people see that as a fighter and that fighting spirit and keep pushing forward. And at the end of the day, if you lose, you lose. And I think that's what resonates most with people is just his personality of being a fighter and trying to do what's right for America. And you can look back, he's been saying the same thing for the past 40 or 50 years, right? He was pushing the same type of policies that he is now with China and trade, with immigration, with the fiscal conservative values of this country. He's been saying those things for 40, 50 years. And that's his platform now, and that's what he pushes. So it's so surprising now that he goes against the machine, and now it's time to, we don't like him and his policies anymore. So
yeah, I think that's where that's a good way of, the machine is always operating. It does, and both sides have their own mechanisms of how they want to pursue, country policy and what their agendas are. Here's a newsflash on either side. Not all their agendas are, going to work out for you as an individual.
Right.
I mean, that's living in a democracy, is it's not always going to be perfect for you. Hopefully it is for the greater good. Means of the many outweigh the means of the one, kind of, best of the Star Trek movie quotes, I guess. Nerd. This episode of the Original Firefighter podcast is sponsored by Castle Contracting. Castle Contracting offers commercial and residential restoration, leading the industry in roofing, residential siding, gutters and downspouts, egress window installation, storm damage assessment and repair, and solar energy, saving you money and time. If you want to be treated like royalty, contact Castle Contracting to schedule a free inspection. Call them at 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. That's 877-512-4207 or go online and visit castleexteriors.net. Serving Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, Castle Contracting has you covered. Your home is your castle. Call Castle Contracting today. Both sides have their war machines, even after the election's over with.
Oh, yeah.
They're right back to
getting ready for the next one.
Get ready for the next one. It's a never-ending process. I think the thing that we all need to wake up to is your candidate of choice, they're not ever going to know you personally.
Yeah.
They're all in their own bubble on both sides. That his ego, Trump's ego, is not unique.
Right.
And that's what keeps getting painted is that, he's got just his ego it's just too much. Really? You all got it. Biden, huge ego, sitting up there and, during when he was a senator and having, they hearings and anytime that, any one of them gets a microphone in front of their mouth, they have the biggest head in the room at that point in time because they want to be heard and they want to be important. And Trump is just doing it better than everyone else.
Yeah. But it's no surprise. He's been like that forever, right? I mean, since he's been a public figure, he's been that way. There's no change. There's no surprise. That's what I'm saying is we know what we're getting, and whether people agree or disagree, at times we're much better, much better, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about, conflicts in the world that are happening right now and the financial state of everything with, inflation, which is coming down, they say, I haven't, felt it yet. Hopefully it's coming.
They got excited the other day because the Feds lowered the rate by 0.5%, and in the same news cycle, there was mention that the cost of a gallon of gas had dropped by 20 cents. So like they think the national average being like $3.22. And again, I had to like pinch myself going, we're excited about that.
Yeah.
Like $3.22. Good job. You brought it down 20 cents.
Yeah.
However, again, those mechanisms work and, things fluctuate. But here again, we're back to, under Trump, it was like $1.85.
Yep.
How are you even putting these numbers together and going, yeah, man, my life is a lot better right now because I'm paying $3.22 for a gallon of gas, and I'm excited because it came down 20 cents.
It is funny when you hear, and it's both sides, right? When we talk about one thing and then they say, well, the president doesn't control that. So it's other things that were in place, and until it's their candidate or their president, it's like, we're taking credit for this. It's like, wait, didn't you just tell me that the president doesn't control the gas prices?
Yeah.
No, but their policies do. The policies in place do. Why is the gas so high? Well, we've reduced, and they want to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels and oils, right? With Trump.
But for what reason? Let's is it really, hey, let's save the environment? Or is it, there's a new way to make money?
Yeah.
And it's by lithium batteries and everything operating on a battery and
a carbon tax that we can put in the future, and you have to buy credits.
Yeah.
And you go over those.
Those batteries have worked out real great for New York City as they keep having apartment fires every other day.
Yeah. I mean, those are insanely dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. They've literally had to come out with, you can't keep bringing these lithium batteries in these buildings because you're burning them up.
Well, and imagine a Tesla or other EV in underground parking, right? I mean, basement fires are some of the most dangerous fires we go on. Mm-hmm. Now put something in there that's going to burn for days.
Yeah. And,
right?
and the thing that we bring to every fire doesn't put the fire out, at all. And, and in many cases makes it worse.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, we've always found a way, the fire service does that. We adapt and we figure out how to put these fires out or manage the crisis or whatever it is. But again, unintended consequences or intended, that's the other thing too. And this is here's another disclaimer, we're not attempting on this show to put, conspiracy theories out there.
I will.
You might. Yeah, you might. And we can roll with that. Really, it's important to me to let listeners and viewers know, like, whatever you think about is going on in our current world right now, you better put some real thought into why you are supporting the candidate that you believe you should support. Democrat, Republican, red or blue, everyone's going to make a choice. Why are you making that choice? That's all I'm asking is, why are you making that choice? And if it's coming down to, Trump said it in the ABC debate. He said the abortion conversation has gone on for so long in this country. Like, it's like that's the thing that's going to divide us, is that? Or how about all of the other umpteen things that are on that totem pole in level of importance? The first one being what you started out with was, how about the safety and security of our country?
Yeah.
Let's get that figured out. And then start tackling other things as well. And we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm not saying that, you can't have abortion be important to you. You can. Just as much as I may think that my gun rights protected by the Second Amendment, that's important to me. And I want that to be preserved. Okay, you want to go after abortion. You want that to be preserved or however you want that to be molded. Okay, that's fine. But I tell you, between the two, gun control and abortion, I'm about sick of both the conversations. There is bigger things that are going on in the world right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're just coming right back to this one thing, that's what do they call it? Myopic.
Well, those conversations are the clickbait conversations, right? Those are the
of course.
things that grab the headlines and grab people's attention. And I really care about this one topic. But there's, like you said, there's way more that we need to focus on as a country to rebuild, right? And not just rebuild as a country, but rebuild as a people here, because we're broken. We're shattered. It's 50-50. Families have been destroyed because of who you support for president. And it happens on both sides. I think it tends to happen more on one side than the other. But I don't know when we change from being able to have logical, reasonable conversations with our friends and family about maybe our beliefs and what we want, to now we can't even have those conversations.
We definitely have to get back to civility.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, I'd love to try to figure that out with you, is like, how does that actually happen? I would think have the conversation that we're having right now. Again, I can probably read the room pretty well and think that we're of like-minded, and that's fine. But if another person came in and joined the conversation, they had a different opinion, I'm going to listen. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. I will listen. I don't have to agree. I certainly don't have to disagree with violence. I don't have to do any of that. No one has to participate in that, in physical violence. And quite frankly, you don't have to scream at anybody.
Right.
Just be like, I don't agree.
Yeah.
And leave it.
There's certain times when people just, I think it's not more of their beliefs and your beliefs that makes them angry. It's you challenging their beliefs and them not knowing how to respond because they can't defend it and they can't believe that they could actually be wrong.
Well, this is what keeps coming back to, the other side, is why are you voting for Kamala Harris? Well, the question is, why are you voting for them? And if your answer is, well, I like her better and she's got vibes and she's brat and she owe me a beer or some bourbon. Yeah, and it's like, if that's where you're going to start off, that's your jumping point, I'm already walking away, because again, I'm not concerned, and I strongly feel that we should not be concerned as to whether or not we like our elected officials. Do I like them? They don't give a shit if you like them or not. Yeah. They don't care. What I should be asking is, what are you going to do that aligns with my feelings and philosophy of how we should live this one life that we have? Are you going to make my life better? Are you going to make it worse? Are you going to take the country into war? Are you going to inflate the prices? And are we going to be right back to, dealing with inflation? Are we going to have high unemployment? Or are we going to have successes and options and opportunities? And don't just tell me that you're going to give me opportunity. Tell me how you're going to give me opportunity. How are you going to do it? That's it.
Yeah.
How are you going to do those things?
Well, I don't have an answer to give you on that.
Come on, that's why you're on the show. I thought you were going to come in with all the ways of fixing
opportunity government or opportunity economy. That's interesting. Not in a good way, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Or how about the I'm going to give you $25,000 for a house, right?
Yeah.
Hasn't anyone ever haven't they figured out like?
I feel like we're going to go back to 2007, 2008 when everybody was getting approved for loans at, I make minimum wage, but here's your $500,000 house loan. And then what happened?
Well, and again, that goes back. That was one of, Clinton's, his philosophy, and under his administration was he wanted everyone to have a home.
Yeah.
Which is a great thought. Like, wow, everyone in America has a home, big, small, medium size, whatever, but at least everybody has a home, right?
Yeah.
That was the philosophy, was that everyone gets a loan, everyone gets a home. And then boom. And the boom didn't come for 10 years later, at least.
Yeah.
So, that again, unintended consequences.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this great thing for, a fraction of people that can't afford a home. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to give you money, but I don't really see what's around the corner, which is probably another, boom.
Well, this is part of the problem too, is when you look at the intermingling of government and big business, and especially when you talk about the banks, right? Big banks, and then the people who run the big banks then go run the Fed, right? And it's like, I can't see how this can go wrong. But when and I don't want to blame it all on, policy that was created by the politicians, even though they take some blame, but the banks took advantage of it. We're giving out junk loans and junk bonds and all this different stuff. And then when it failed, the banks were going to be hurt. And what happened? The people that caused it were then saved, right? But with the money, I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Big Short.
Of course I did.
Right? What a great
Many
movie
times.
that was.
Great movie. And I actually did I fact checked that movie afterwards. I wanted to know more about, the key players and what did they really do. And it's pretty accurate.
Yeah. But you take those people and that were bailed out and then taking the bailout money and going on trips and getting bonuses. It's like, wait a second.
Yep.
What was that money for?
And that's why when our politicians, and going back to the current election cycle, listen to what they say they're going to do and then ask the question, where are they getting the money to do that?
Right.
I mean, if that's not your second question, what are you going to do? Okay, so what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And then how are you going to pay for it? There's your top three questions of pretty much any debate topic that you want to talk about. You want to talk about home loans and housing shortages, and you want to talk about how to wrangle in debt. You want to talk about how to pay off credit cards, which our society is just literally just drowning in credit card debt.
Yeah,
I mean, most of us you have to figure out that if there's a tipping point where you're not getting out of it, ever, and again, the solution is not for the government to step in and then bail you out. Because then that's just a perpetual cycle. Then basically it's like, you know what? Hey, I can fuck up as much as I want because they're going to come and save me.
Right.
Bullshit.
We just made your debt everyone's debt.
Yeah.
We're not growing as a country with Americans having children, right? We are growing as a country with people coming in, most illegally, right? And that, how do you collect taxes, right? So the birth rate is on a decline, and what's our future look like? Because we always put, especially when you talk about Social Security and those entitlement benefits and those packages and things, the people working are paying for the people that aren't working, right? And at a certain point, you're not going to have enough people working to pay for the people that are collecting. So it's definitely something that needs to be figured out. And I'm not saying that we should get rid of Social Security. I think it's just no different than a pension, right? You worked for it, you paid into it. That's the benefit that you earned.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's a promise that was made, and can we at least not break that one?
Right.
Since we seem to break so many of the others.
Wow.
And but the bigger picture to me is, I think you're alluding to it, is that when we talk about making America great again, I've thought about that statement. just that in of itself offends so many people, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, those offended, are you stopping to ask the question, well, why does that side think that it needs to be made great again? If you think it's great, okay, again, tell me how it's great. There's a great episode. I think it's the very first episode. There's a show called Newsroom.
Yeah.
And
5 minutes.
The first 5 minutes of that show, where the student stands up and asks, why is America the greatest country on earth? And his response is like, just destroys the whole idea that it is the greatest country on earth by, and he gives real stats, terrible in education, declining birth rate, we spend more than anybody on our military than all other, some 30 some countries combined.
Yeah.
And but the question is like, why do you think that we think that America should be made great again? And it's not because it's not because we go around looking at the small details, like what bathroom should I be using in 2024? Or what are your pronouns, or what should you call me? Because as far as I'm concerned, my pronouns are handsome and genius.
Those are nice. Yeah.
Right.
I refuse to call you those, but
that's your prerogative. That's your right to refuse to, but it's my right to choose them. I mean, at least that's what things are telling me in 2024. I can just make it all up, right?
It's true.
But where I'm going with this is that all of that, what we just did right there, that's just distraction stuff.
Yeah.
It's distracting us from the situation of what you're describing. Is you cannot sustain a country, a society that's attempting to live in the freest, best country on the planet, which I do believe we are. And we're going to continue to do that by having broken families and homes everywhere, cities that are allowed to be torched and burned, and people that can go lawless and go, at any whim and say, you know what, I don't like this, so I'm going to burn down this business or this, and then have our politicians go, well, they're just expressing their feelings. And then there are some of us out there going, wait a minute. At this point, what does it matter than what we teach our children? What, obey the rules? Why? Because when you grow up, you get to just break them all.
Here's how I express my feelings. I write a strongly worded letter. I'm joking. Probably text. I don't know.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Pound sand.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think we can talk about it all day and we'll never have answers because we can't, unfortunately, get into the mind of the politicians because, like you said, we don't know them personally. We'll never know them personally. And also we can't get into the minds of people that support them.
I'm just going to push back, is that I think that seems very kind of like we're doomed.
Oh, I'm black-pilled. Oh, for sure.
Well, I'm going to try to pull you back off the edge for a minute here, because I think that what it's kind of cyclical, whereas we've turned away from some institutions in this country that we should not have turned away from. We don't collectively understand that just yet. We're suffering the consequences of turning away from those institutions. I am talking about the institutions of family. I am talking about, keeping a nucleus together and, having children, growing them up to be good adults. The turning away from church. I'm not a big churchgoer. I am not religious to any major degree, but I do see its place. I think there's a going back to law and order, and that, again, flies in the face of so many on the other side that want to just be free and loose. And that's working out great, for these, sanctuary cities. It's working out terrible. Look at Aurora, the overtaking of buildings by gangs and just kicking people out and basically threatening their very existence.
They're eating the dogs. Okay.
You're going to go there.
Oh, what a great thing that is. I think it's funny as shit when he said that. There's actually someone made a remix, a song.
Yeah, I saw it.
And it got very popular among the right side. And the guy who wrote it or put it together, like, no, you're not supposed to like this. I'm making fun of him. I'm a socialist. Like, okay, thanks. Appreciate the good song. The biggest thing, whether that is actually happening or not, there's proof of it, right? We have photographic evidence. We have the 911 calls of coming in talking about it, so we know it's actually happening.
But it's not happening.
Whether it's 5 times or 5,000 times doesn't matter. There's certain things with our culture where, and here's the thing: you want to talk about a guy who was carrying a goose, right? Went to the pond and got himself a goose, and how is that different from if you're a hunter? Right? You go out and duck hunting. Or we know plenty of hunters.
Well, first I need a license.
Right.
And
you're hitting the differences right there, right? It's
right.
in season. You're allowed to do it, right? We're not going down to the pond, grabbing it in front of families with their children, right? And there's not to, and this is the thing, we're not trying to disparage other cultures. What we're saying here in this society, in this culture, in this country, we don't do that. That's it. Right?
Yeah.
You can do that in that country, and that's fine, and that's acceptable, and that's what your culture and society has. But we have our own standards. The problem is we're going to see our standards and our culture and our society start to change the more and more this goes down. You look at some of the European countries, right? And they've changed.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not to say it's always a bad thing with change, right? We always get rooted in the, especially in the fire service, we don't like change. There's some good things with change if it's done properly, right? But you can't expect a city with 50,000 people to envelop 20,000 more people.
Right.
That's a pretty big change pretty quickly. So when you talk about those things, whether it is Aurora or whether it's Springfield, Ohio, there's proper way to do things. I mean, even going back to when you said the withdrawal from Afghanistan, there's a proper way to do it.
Yeah.
We didn't do it properly,
No.
right? We didn't take our time and do things the right way, the correct way. And that's, listen, I'm the king of knee-jerk reactions and decision-making for sure.
Hence all the tattoos, right?
Ask my wife. We got married after 5 months, engaged after 3 months.
Best decision you ever made, though.
It worked out well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Some change is good. Not all.
So I want to move over to another topic because obviously it keeps happening, and that is, Donald Trump is targeted. You can't deny that.
Yeah.
There is a force out there that is attempting to, take his life. And, that whole conversation going on right now about the rhetoric and, the temperature, bring the volume down, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I have a question about with this latest attempt. How does a person, without saying this guy's name, because who gives it, we're not going to give him any kind of clout.
Yeah.
Nor the other one, the shooter from Pennsylvania.
The more successful one?
Unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
Very much unfortunate. I still, to this day, I get pissed off that whenever that comes up, the first attempt, the actual person that lost his life is always just, it's already like, we don't even acknowledge that happened.
Yeah.
He was successful. If his intent was to take out the former president, okay, not successful. But the other side of it was this really caused serious damage. And then now we have this latest attempt, which could have caused, serious damage. And again, this goes back to the thought process of anytime our officials are injured or assassinated, that ripple effect is terrible on any country, including ours. We saw this in the 60s. We saw this with the assassination of John F. Kennedy, his brother, Martin Luther King. it was like everybody was up for grabs there, and it was happening. And that was a terrible, terrible, terrible time for this country. And if you think that one of our elected officials is taken out like that, and that's not going to have a damning effect on us, we're very much fooling ourselves.
Yeah, it's definitely dangerous times for him specifically, but for everyone. Because if someone is successful, because this wasn't the last time, right? I mean, plenty of people have said that. There was a whistleblower, who said, this isn't the last time this is going to happen. So the failures all along the way, now whether it was intentional or accidental remains to be seen, because the people in charge aren't answering questions and aren't being held accountable. But you could definitely see some bad things happening if, like I said, someone is successful with an attempt on his life.
So here's the question I've got, again, without saying the person's name, but we know who we're referring to, the 58-year-old man taken into custody in Florida. How does, and this is himself professing that he had no money, no assets, basically meaning he had no means to, just be living a regular life, one that you and I are living. I have some money, I have some assets, and I have the means to go from point A to point B because I have a couple of those things. How does a person with no money, no means, how do they get from, I've been thinking about this, how do they get from Ukraine to Hawaii, live in Hawaii for a bit of time, odds and end jobs, things of that nature, makes a little bit of money probably, but not much to do much with, gets from Hawaii to the mainland, and then gets to Florida, and then obtains an AK-47, and then ends up at a Trump International Golf Course where it wasn't known that he was actually going to go there and play a round of golf. That wasn't as far as what we're told, is that it wasn't a scheduled stop.
Yeah.
I am asking, how does a person with no assets, no money, no means make all those moves across the country and end up in that position?
Isn't it interesting that he was very well known to the FBI and to local law enforcement? And
the media.
And isn't it interesting that the previous one was also known and was also under, not investigation, but was known to these agencies. And especially when you talk about this latest one, he actually had a visit from the FBI because he was in possession of a firearm as a felon. And they closed the case. They didn't report it to the local agencies. They didn't report it to the Secret Service. These are things that me or you would definitely. So when you ask how, very simply, in my opinion, dude was glowing, man. He was part of some agency in some capacity in some way, because there's no way, like you said, unemployed, no assets, arrested hundreds of over 100 times, convicted 70 times, one with a Class F felony of weapons of mass destruction charge. It was a confusing one because you really had to dig and find out what that, possession of a WMD. It's like, Jesus Christ, in 2002?
Did he have a nuke?
Yeah. And you find out it was a fully automatic machine gun.
Right.
But that has a 3-hour standoff. Obviously, they knew him. Obviously, they were well aware of him. Maybe an asset of some sort to somebody. It could have been another country, right? I mean, he, like you said, he was over in Ukraine. He was in D.C. lobbying, right? This guy spent thousands of dollars on flights. To fly from Hawaii, to live in Hawaii is expensive. To fly from Hawaii to wherever he came to that day. Right, I don't know where he flew into. Doesn't matter. Still expensive, right? And then to get to Florida to know
and acquire
right
an AK-47.
Yeah.
Not,
it's probably that gun show loophole that I always hear from the left about.
That darn loophole.
But yeah, obviously he's got some backer somewhere. Someone's paying for things. And like I said, whether it's, a federal agency of our own, I wouldn't be surprised. Nothing would surprise me anymore because look at what's happening.
Yeah.
Or some other foreign entity. You have Iran who makes a threat and wants him held accountable for the death of the austere scholar Soleimani. Right?
Mm-hmm. They've made it clear who they want elected.
Right.
It's crazy to think about where we're at in this world today, where our elections in the United States are all of a sudden on everyone's agenda everywhere else in the world. Let's make sure that we get a certain person in because, that's going to do well for them.
Going to benefit them, yeah. The biggest thing with this, I think, is it's just crazy to think about. And man, one with a open mind could really jump down a conspiratorial rabbit hole on this. I think the biggest thing, though, is the guy was mentally ill and he was taken advantage of by people, whether that's the media who's been propagating this heated rhetoric and then tries to blame it on the victim, right? Their heated rhetoric is the one. It's like, no, that's not the case at all. You can stop. You're correlating something that is the wrong direction for sure. I would rather use the reason and think logically on this to think that what you're saying is you're calling someone a threat to democracy. You're calling them the next Hitler. You're calling them this. You're calling them that. That's going to inspire some mentally ill people to do some stupid things at the end of the day.
And it is all mental ill. I mean, that's not conspiracy.
Right.
It's mental illness.
Right. I think my favorite part of it, and if one could have a favorite part of attempted assassination, and it's frustrating when you actually hear the media. It's like, well, but nothing happened. What? That's your response? Nothing happened? It's already swept under the rug, too. And literally a day or two later, Hillary Clinton is talking about him being a threat to democracy again. That's the heated rhetoric that needs to be brought down, not someone saying they're eating the dogs. But my favorite part of it, I guess, not so we don't get too like black-pilled like I already am, is when the guy came out and he had to lift up his shirt and they were searching him. Tell me he didn't look like the great Cornholio who needed teepee for his bunghole, because that was immediately
Beavis
came
and
to
Butthead. You're right.
But kind of look like him too.
He does.
But yeah, it's insane to think of how we've gotten here, and like I said, nothing's going to surprise me, because you talk about someone who's been persecuted, whether deserved or not. Some things may be deserved, but you talk about 2 impeachments and the indictments and the felony charges, and then now 2 assassination attempts on one person. That's crazy. Like this has got to be the wildest election in modern time.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not talking about the 1800s where it was like maybe a duel for a cabinet position.
Oh yeah.
In our modern civilized times, this is what we're dealing with. And like I said, I don't think this is the last one. I think
I'm struggling with the civilized word at this point, the civility of it all. There's this was something wrote by Ron Hart. He's a libertarian opinion columnist for Orange County Register. He wrote this. He wrote, "The most hypocritical thing in the wake of the shooting is how the left-wing media and politicians act sanctimoniously about how we need to tone down our language. This from the people who called Trump, quote-unquote, Hitler for years. And if you vilify someone as Hitler, a man who killed 5 million Jews in the Holocaust and caused the deaths of 73 million more people who fought in World War II, It is not a big moral leap to think that someone killing him would be justified. It's louder than a dog whistle. It's a call to action. You know, and that's actually happening. I mean, we're seeing it play out day after day after day. You know, however you consume your news or your media, whatever, you're literally seeing this volume, you know, up to 10 calling this one individual Orange Hitler and the greatest threat to our country, the greatest threat to democracy. And I think that that's actually kind of funny, because if you actually go back just to about every 4 years that we have a presidential election, democracy is always somehow on the table. Like, we're going to lose it. It's going to be destroyed. And it's like, why go there every single time? We're not losing our democracy. First of all, we're a republic. Okay. So get it straight, you know, and we have laws, we have rules, we have a constitution, we have a Bill of Rights, we have 3 branches of government. We're going to be fine.
Yeah,
by whoever gets the election, we're going to be fine. That this one person is not going to take democracy away. It takes a hell of a lot more than that.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have to literally unravel everything in order for that to actually come to play. I think that freedom is always on the table. What you're going to be free to do as a citizen of this country, that's definitely determined by policy.
You can look, and there's some pretty well-spoken people that have said it. Have said, look at what's happening in Australia, and then what happens in England, and then look at what's happening here, and we're about 5 years behind where they are, right? Especially in England. You have people getting arrested for speech, you know, and it's like, well,
yep.
You know, and now you have a vice presidential candidate that says your speech isn't protected, you know, because hate speech or whatever you want to call it, right? They can't even define it. What's hate speech or what's bad speech or what's misinformation, disinformation, right? But
there's actually countries outside of the U.S. that are trying to go after Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's insane.
You know, for what he has, you know, for what he has to say, and clearly, if you're, you know, billionaire extraordinaire and you speak, you know, people are going to listen. I get that.
Yeah.
But you know, other countries are weighing in, like they got to, you know, put Elon in his place. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah. Going back to the Hitler thing, because you talked about every 4 years, democracy is always on the ballot. Well, I think it was like every Republican president in the past 50 years has been referred to as Hitler, by the way. So this is nothing new. I mean, Mitt Romney, milquetoast Romney, was Hitler, right, at a time. George W. Bush was Hitler at a time. George H.W. Bush was Hitler at a time. Ronald Reagan was Hitler. Right. Yeah, everybody, that's the go-to, right? That's the
who knew he'd be so popular after death?
Right.
There's never been a more evil person to walk this planet and do the most, atrocities beyond imagination. And then, you know, we're going to boil this down to that we have someone like that running in our bullshit.
Right. Well, it really diminishes and demeans what he actually did and the victims of it by just referring to everyone as that.
Yep.
Right. When you call someone a Nazi or fascist, it loses its meaning, because you wouldn't, if you were actually talking to someone who had those ideals and beliefs, you'd probably be afraid and would never say that to them. The reason you're able to say that to someone is because you understand that they're not going to do anything to you.
Yeah.
Right. When you want to talk about approaching people that are actually bad, right? Go say something to MS-13 gang member. Go up to his face.
There you go.
You know, like, you're not going to.
Nope.
Right? So when you want to just go up to the person on the street or the conservative or the Republican or whoever and say, you know, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi. Like, okay. All right. It means nothing anymore. You've ruined that because it should mean something. Those are people that we should despise and hate and dislike. And
there's a entire, you know, groups of people who suffered at the hands of it.
But,
and you're disrespecting that as well. I just hope that we do, you know, come to our senses a little bit, get some civility back. To think that it's all going to be stripped away because of an election, you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
It's not coming down to just one thing. There are bigger systems at play that are operating behind the scenes and things of that nature. It's not just one person.
All it is it's fear porn, and people just can't get enough of it. So I just keep buying it.
Yeah.
Who can escalate it next?
Well, I've had a great time having you on the show today, and this probably will not be the last time that we do a deep dive into some of these topical things of our time. It's exactly what would be discussed in a firehouse over coffee, and in the corner of a firehouse where you're just, talking with your buddy and saying, hey, this is what I think. What do you think? And probably finding some common ground, disagreeing a little bit. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And with that said, I appreciate that you guys were here today. It's always entertaining and fun to have Phil in the house, and Elvis is about to leave, and we'll have you back again. Does that sound good?
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
Remember, the Original Firefighter podcast show, it's here for your off days. Our gear is online. You can go to our website, originalfirefighter.com, pick up merchandise. We love bringing you the show, and we'll continue to do. Be safe.